Hey friends, welcome back to 3D Cartoon Review. Today we enter the smoke and thunder of Tales of Herding Gods Episode 60, a bandit's cloud boat that outruns the wind, a princess, general who walks on water, and a midnight gamble beneath enemy skyships. The first omen arrived with a cough and a clatter. While the Taishu Institute students were forming up to depart for the front, a tattered tower ship lurched out of the clouds and skidded to a stop before the grand hall hull pocked by holes, planks shedding splinters like dandruff. At its rail leaned a man whose whole body seemed carved from swagger, Fan Yin Siu tattooed from throat to knuckles, the kind of bandit whose grin made accountants cry. "Brother Qin," he boomed, calling Qin Mu old brother, as if they had robbed temples together since the cradle. Whispers rolled across the students. "We're meant to trust that." The crew looked worse, scarred cheeks, missing noses, one-eyed men who squinted like knives. Someone muttered that Qin Mu would be stripped to his bones the moment the door shut. Another swore he saw the keel flex. The boat lifted, wheezed, then screamed. It punched through the sound barrier like a fist through silk and tore a silver seam across the cloud bank. The other Academy ships shrank behind them to toys on a map. Inside, crewmen hammered new patches over old ones as whole plates of cladding dropped away in the slipstream. A gust swept the deck, flinging cold rain like needles. It sluiced over the bandits and did a stranger kind of magic. Tattoos bled away, scars rinsed off. The one-eyed mate tugged his scarf down, two healthy eyes blinked back. Paint, not ink. Costumes, not sins. The act had been for Ferocity's theater, not confession. Qin Mu didn't even arch a brow. He sat cross-legged and pulled a scroll from his sleeve. "Brother Fan," he said mildly, "walk me through the numbering of the Daoists. Your Wan, Yi, Zhao Jing, where does it end? And how does it begin again at the dust grain? The Fan, Li, Bi, Sat Na." Fan Yin Siu grinned wider and obliged, palms sketching figures in the air like constellations. The macro units used in astral formation calculus, the micro units used for inscribing runes upon the smallest threads of primordial qi. The higher sword chapters say, the 14th of the Dao sword you engrave a sigil on the tiniest granule of essence. Miss by a breath and the formation errs. Qin Mu nodded, hungry-eyed. He had always known the Daoist arithmetic ran deeper than ledger math. Now he felt the depth yawning under his feet, and welcomed it. The ship rattled, and did not break a metaphor he could live with. They reached Donghua in a day and a half, Lezhou's front line, where the river ran wide as rumor and twice as cold. Battle had ended moments before. Warboats smoldered in the current, bodies rolled like broken logs. Qin Mu raised the azure heaven's eye and looked across the water. In the far city, sporadic divine arts still flared, pockets being burned out, strongholds salted. The air tasted of iron and old oaths. When their ship settled onto a scorched quay, Fan Yin Siu measured the students with a brigand's eye and snorted. "Too green," he said under his breath, "and trouble for Brother Qin." He clapped Qin Mu on the shoulder, wheeled his crew, and was gone, vanished into the sky before the students could feel properly insulted. They found no time to sulk. A river officer checked seals, confirmed they were Taishu students, and sprinted off when Qin Mu asked to see Lezhou's acting prefect. He returned with General Ngu Uyên Sơ Vũ, armor still scored with fresh battle, hair damp with mist, eyes like a measure used for impossible sums. "You," she said to Qin Mu, surprise shading into a wry respect. "You've become famous in the time it takes to mend a shield." Gasps ticked through the cohort. So this is the prefect, the princess of the old Yuyuan kingdom? On the city wall, Cha Yu answered the question Qin Mu didn't bother to hide. "Corpse Immortal Sect is flat, we broke the back. The remnants ran to the southern wilderness. There the rebel sects knit their nests. The water's too deep to see the bottom. Old world and new world overlap. Loyalties are mired. You can't tell a martyr from a traitor by the cut of his robe." She let her gaze fall on Yunke a beat too long, and smiled just enough to make his knees consider the ground. Then she led 1,000 soldiers out, walking across the river as if it were a floor. Qin Mu and the students ran lightfoot after them, keeping pace with the wake. "Do you expect me to rebel?" she asked, voice flat as a blade. Qin Mu watched the current, and answered without ornament. "This rebellion is the national preceptor's trap to purge the old powers. Clear-headed folk won't take the bait." Her mouth remembered an older smile. "Once, my father and I argued statecraft with the national preceptor of Yankang. We lost cleanly and yielded the Yuyuan kingdom. We hold Lezhou now by covenant. If the preceptor fails the realm, then I rebel. Until then, I keep the bargain. She squinted at him. At Ho Dung, a corpse Immortal 7 Stars master turned up poisoned. Tricky hand, smelled like you. Qin Mu let the moment pass without answer. They both had the measure already. They reached Lu County, just retaken from the rebels. Cha Yu's finger traced the map, then the ruin, then the silence. Too weak, too tidy, she said. Old era powers are waiting, not fighting. From Li Qing Palace's 3 treasures to wandering sect masters, even gods from the last age who might still be breathing, the real storm hasn't landed. She assigned Qin Mu's party a light task, with a look that said she knew it wasn't. Eradicate the 9 Nether Sect cell, those frauds who pretend to gods and ghosts. They would move once the remaining students arrived. The order struck tinder in Qin Mu's mind. 2 Soul Path arts in the Heavenly Record Pavilion's first level had sat unloved for years. 9 Nether's Soul-Leading Guide and Red Mountain Sect's Commanding Demons and Driving Gods. Underpowered, understudied, and he realized now deliberately miswritten before being submitted to court. With Red Mountain's vast rune foundation, he corrected the errors in Soul-Leading Guide, then went to find corpses for a test. Soldiers said the dead 9 Nether adherents lay at Dejang and Lu Mountain. If someone held the true soul-leading, those graves could become doors. He ran to warn the pickets. Too late. A lone Daoist in a straw hat stood in mid-river and cast. Green sigils irised open like a gate to the nether, black smoke boiled up to cloak the sky, and a Taishu tower ship full of students was swallowed whole. In the hills behind, the 9 Nether corpses of Lu Mountain sat up, stitched themselves together with old hate, and walked strength nearly equal to their living peak. Lok County screamed. The Yangkang troops, drilled for cooperative formations, were split, could not array, and were cut down piecemeal. A Heaven and Man general fell to combined strikes by 9 Nether masters. Corpse Immortal Daoists flashed golden talismans and drove the dead like cattle. Despair learned a new stride. Qin Mu didn't debate. He broke the ring with Shen Wanyun, Yun Kui, Yue Qinghong, Hu Ling Er, and Qin Lin, angling for the east gate. Along the riverbank, drowned men crawled up through the mud, mouths trying to remember old prayers. Qin Mu cut a path. Heads flew. Bodies kept coming, stooping to pick their faces up and jam them back on with the stubbornness of nightmares. Dejang was black with smoke. There was no going back. South, Qin Mu snapped. Southern wilderness. Then find a road home. The night was thick enough to drink. Behind them, Lok County turned a red sea, an unending sound. Noise flared in the fog, the not-alive milling in their own confusion. The party buried Shen Wanyan up to the neck to still his breath and hid where the wind wasn't looking. Controlled corpses blundered past, searching the ground for the right arms, the right heads. Qin Mu used the clatter to pull his people away, only to hear a new song rise through the mist. Thin, uncanny chanting. Torn half-corpses had planted themselves and were performing soul-leading, calling spirits back to claim meat. The logic was cruel and clean. Break the rite and the soul snaps back to the underworld. The chanters must sing without ceasing. Skirting those nodes, they cut east and ran into fresh packs of 9 Nether and Corpse Immortal disciples, herding living prey for the dead. This was prepared, Qin Mu said, anger thinning his breath. They caught Shan Yu without a hand free. All Lezhou could go under. Someone high had leaked Taishua's itinerary. He did not speak the first-rank name that rose to his tongue. At Lu Mountain, the smoke thinned. Relaxation punished them. Chanting again, not soul-leading, a different cadence set the hairs on their necks on edge. Qin Mu ghosted forward to look. What he saw would have frightened iron. A great altar built from bones, a floor of skulls, white streamers at the corners, stained with snake blood, and in the center a demon idol with 8 arms, 4 faces, 18 eyes. 13 Daoists, men and women, handled talisman treasures, lighting runes across the idol's hide like embers across bark. Red Mountain Sect, not the court version either, the Forbidden Core, commanding demons and driving gods. The sect had been annihilated by the national preceptor. Its survivors had clearly linked hands with 9 Nether and Corpse Immortal. Ngu's vengeance stirred into the ink. And they knew the students' arrival time proof of treachery above their pay grade. If the idol manifested, they would die. Lezhou would follow. Qin Mu slid back, eyes like hooks. We kill the 13 before the rite closes. Yun Kui and Yue Qinghong went white around the mouth, but they stepped into sense. Spellmasters are deadly at range and clumsy up close. Close was where they would fight. No speeches, Qin Mu said. Hit, end, break the idol, move. Ling Long Qilin make noise, hunt like lions. The priests turned their heads toward the staged commotion. Qin Mu moved, a stroke of lightning that had decided to become a man. Steel flashed, a head fell and rolled. His sword was already in the next chest. The third died on a horizontal cut that opened the air like a hinge. Shen Wanyun smashed an arm, then a throat tiger form blooming and vanishing. Yun Kui's heavy fists cracked a sternum like a bowl. Yu Wei Qinghong cut a talisman, treasure in half and the priest behind it with it. Lang Nu put her knuckles through a skull as if it owed her rent. Si Yungxiang's needles and fox arts stitched silence through two more. When quiet finally held, the plinth was a garden of fresh dead. Si Yungxiang crouched, checking bodies, and her calm fractured. Most one strike, she whispered. How fast are you? Qin Mu didn't answer. There was only work. Break the idol, burn the altar, move. The knight said no. From miles away came a detonation that blushed the clouds. Bloodlight speared the sky, thunder walked on its hands, and a second demon idol rose beyond the ridge the other team had succeeded. The earth's skin crawled with wrongness. There was no way to win there and live here. Strip them, Qin Mu said. Robes, streamers, talismans. We leave as Red Mountain. In minutes they were high-collared, white-bannered, pockets full of borrowed seals. They slipped the black zone and walked straight into an army. Above, grand tower ships, their rails flowered with archers and spellmasters. Below, beast cavalry whose mounts steamed in the night. Ahead, a 7 stars officer dropping from the air to bar their path. Identify yourselves, he barked. His eyes caught the Red Mountain insignia and sharpened with a policeman's joy. Deserters, running after the fight started. His blade lifted in economy of movement before a summary sentence. Qin Mu didn't blink. We were the summoning team, he said evenly. Ambushed. Our altar was broken. There are 6 survivors. He paused. But the summoning succeeded. Our merit is written. The officer opened his hand to the cloud ship in appeal. A general's voice, Xiao Yi, fell from the deck like a judge's hammer. Test them. If they were truly Red Mountain, they would know the summon demon glyph array. Have them cast. Despair glanced between the 6 like a silent courier. None knew the true Red Mountain method, only Qin Mu's reconstructed grammar. Qin Mu raised his hands. Essence stirred. Runes bloomed the syntax of commanding demons he had pried from exposed bones and arrogant lies. The lines were not orthodox Red Mountain, but they were whole, coherent, hungry, and true to themselves. Light struck the air and shaped itself into a hazy idol that wasn't there and yet was, the kind that makes a soldier's breath arrive in 2 parts. On the cloud ship, men cried out despite themselves. The 7 stars officer's blade lowered, not in mercy but in math. If this was fraud, it was excellent. An excellent fraud earns a hearing. A rope ladder dropped from the nearest skyship. Up Red Mountain, the officer said, covering prudence with contempt. Let the general decide your rewards. Qin Mu inclined his head as if he were used to being obeyed. The 6 climbed, boots thudding on rungs slick with mist. At the rail, archers shifted, half convinced, half hungry for a reason not to be. Qin Mu stepped aboard, felt the deck's pulse through the timbers, and smiled the way men smile when a door opens onto a room with 3 more doors inside. Your glyph work is unusual, General Xiao Yi said, studying what lingered in the air. Not standard Red Mountain. Qin Mu folded his hands. The standard was compromised in transit. The field variant holds better under interference. The general's mouth twitched with professional appreciation. Useful. His gaze sharpened. And your report? Qin Mu let the words fall cleanly. 1 bone altar broken, idol suppressed. The other altar has manifested. 9 Nether and Corpse Immortal are herding civilians to feed it. If your ships strike now high and hard, you sever their driving talismans before the dead are arrayed. Silence took a breath. This was how soldiers think. Edges, timing, cost. Bold, the general said, and slashed 2 signals into the air. Drums rolled. On every deck, crews sprang to stations. The sky fleet began to wheel, bows yawing toward the blood-lit ridge. Qin Mu bowed, turned with his sect mates, and moved to the far rail. Lin Yi was a small shadow at his elbow, Long Qilin a larger one below. Yun Kui exhaled like a man who had been holding a mountain on his back. Yue Qinghong squeezed a talisman until it creaked. Shen Wanyun flexed bleeding knuckles and grinned without humor. Alive, Qin Mu murmured. Inside the storm instead of under it. The drums deepened, the fleet's keels thrummed. Far off, the second idol roared like a hill taught to hate. Qin Mu slipped a final borrowed streamer into his sleeve and felt the weight of it settle the way a promise does when it knows it will be kept. Below, the beast cavalry formed columns. Above, the spellmasters locked their sigils. Somewhere, Cha Yu would already be moving, counting casualties with one hand and futures with the other. He allowed himself one look at the dark where Lezhou still burned, and then he faced forward. Go, he said softly to the fleet, to his companions, to the night that listened. The sky ships surged, prow lamps cutting spears of light through smoke. The bone-built thing on the ridge lifted its faces to meet them. The wind took the banners and tore them into long white flames. The chapter closed on the edge of a charge, not with a pause, but with a purpose sharpened to a blade. That's where episode 60 ends. One bone altar shattered, a second idol roaring on the ridge, and Qin Mu in borrowed robes turning an enemy test into a siege order from their own fleet. Next time, does the fleet strike sever the driving talismans in time? What price will Princess General Cha Yu pay to seal the Nether Gate? And which High Minister fed the students' route to the enemy? If this faithful cinematic retelling pulled you into the fog, please like, subscribe to 3D Cartoon Review, and ring the bell so the next chapter finds you on time. Your comments sharpen the blade, tell me which moment hit hardest. See you on the wall.